You ever been in one of those arguments that just goes completely off the rails? You're talking past each other, getting more and more frustrated, and in the end, nothing gets solved? Well, what if I told you there's a single, powerful technique that can turn those dead-end fights into genuinely productive conversations? That's exactly what we're going to break down today.
So, why are we so bad at this? Seriously. It turns out, most of us walk into a disagreement with what you might call a soldier mindset. The only goal is to attack the other side and defend our own turf, no matter what. It's all about winning, not about learning. And that's exactly why so many arguments today feel like a battlefield where, honestly, nobody really wins.
So here's our game plan. First, we're going to look at the big trap we all fall into, the straw man. Then we'll get our hands on the tool that gets us out of it, the steel man. After that, we'll talk about a crucial test you have to pass before you even get to disagree. And finally, we'll see how it all works in the real world with, yes, the great pineapple on pizza debate.
Okay, let's get right into it. Section 1, the trap. This is our default mode when we argue, that soldier mindset, where the only thing that matters is victory, not actually figuring out what's true.
And the soldier's favorite weapon? It's the straw man fallacy. The name pretty much says it all. Instead of fighting the real person and their real argument, you build this flimsy, easy-to-knock-over scarecrow version of what they said, and then you knock it down. It's a cheap shot and it gets us absolutely nowhere. And here is a perfect, all-too-common example. The real argument on the left is a nuanced conversation starter. But look at the straw man on the right. It twists that idea into something completely absurd and impossible to defend. So you want total anarchy? Of course not. Nobody's arguing for that. But it's a whole lot easier to attack that than it is to engage with the actual complex idea.
So in the end, using this tactic comes at a really high price. Yeah, you might feel a little smug because you won, but you just won a fake argument against a fake opponent. And what's worse, you've probably hurt a relationship, you've learned absolutely nothing, and the real, potentially interesting idea was just left on the table, completely ignored. So, if that's the trap, how do we get out? Well, that brings us to Section 2. The key is a fundamental shift in our mindset, from being a soldier to being a scout. See, a scout's job isn't to win a battle. It's to map the terrain, to see what's really there, to find the truth. And to do that, they need a very different kind of tool. And that tool is called steel manning. It is the literal opposite of the straw man. Instead of making your opponent's argument weaker, you do the opposite. You intentionally build the strongest, most intelligent, most persuasive version of their argument you can think of. Maybe even a version that's better than how they said it themselves.
So how do you actually do this? Well, it's a three-step process. First, you have to genuinely listen. Not for flaws, but for the core belief they're trying to get at. Second, you state their idea back to them, but in its best possible form. And then, only after they say, yes, that's it, you've got it, then you can start to engage with that powerful steel-reinforced version.
And this is exactly why it works so well. The moment you steel man someone's idea, you can just see their defenses drop. They feel heard, they feel respected, and that opens the door for a real conversation, where the goal isn't to beat the other person, but for both of you to test an idea and find the truth, even if it means discovering you were the one who was wrong.
Now this brings us to a really crucial point, a kind of checkpoint, because before you can even begin to critique someone's idea, you have to prove that you actually understand it. You have to earn the right to have an opinion.
It's called the ideological Turing test. And the test is simple. Can you explain a viewpoint you disagree with so clearly, so accurately, and so charitably that a person who truly believes it would hear you and say, wow, yes, that's exactly it. You get me. Let that just sink in for a second. That's the rule. If you can't pass that test, you haven't earned the right to criticize. Your only job at that point is to ask more questions. Understanding has to come before disagreement. Full stop.
All right, enough theory. Let's put this whole thing into practice. It is time for our demo, and we're going to use a low-stakes but, surprisingly passionate debate. Pineapple on pizza. We're going to see two very different approaches side by side. First up, the approach we see all the time. The soldier, armed and ready with a straw man.
Okay, so person A states their case. Simple, a matter of taste.
And there it is. Here comes the soldier. Notice the instant attack. That's disgusting. You like ruining culture. It's not about the pizza anymore, is it? It's a personal attack based on a ridiculous, distorted version of person A's preference. And just like that, the conversation is dead.
Okay, let's hit the rewind button and try that one more time. This time, person B is going to use the scout mindset and the steelman technique.
Same as before, person A stakes the opposition. Now, just listen to this response. It starts with genuine curiosity. Okay, let me see if I get this. And then it builds this surprisingly sophisticated culinary argument for the other side. It's talking about the salt-fat-acid balance. This isn't an attack. It's an honest attempt to find the logic, the why, behind their view.
And what's the result? Person A is thrilled. Yes, exactly. They feel completely understood, totally validated, even by someone who is on the other side of the debate.
I mean, the difference is just night and day. The soldier breaks the connection, escalates the fight. The scout, on the other hand, builds a connection and maintains respect, even when they disagree. That is the real power of arguing to learn, not just to win.
So, as we wrap up, I want to leave you with a final thought to take with you. Think about a disagreement you've had recently, or maybe one that you know is just around the corner. What would happen if, instead of prepping your attacks and your defenses, you prepared a steel man instead? What argument in your life could you elevate today?